Well, this is the ECMWF weeklies for the upcoming 30-day period. A temperature anomaly across Europe is looking like this here. So, a below average month of March is projected by the ECMWF, and this is all now starting to come together quite nicely in response to the major sudden stratospheric warming that took place back on the 16th of February. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Hogan's European Outlook. It is the 2nd of March. Very interesting times to come. Winter is going to fight back after the prolonged period of relatively mild conditions. It was the driest February in 30 years for England. It was, I believe, the 5th warmest February on record for the British Isles as well. Data coming off the Met Office. So certainly this is going to be a very interesting end game to winter. Cold December, cold middle portion of January, and mild surrounding those cold periods meant that the average temperature for the overall winter period was pretty much bang on average. A few places warmer than average, but interesting when all is said and done. Given how warm 2022 was, it's interesting that the winter overall was relatively unimpressive in terms of the temperature anomaly point of view anyway, warm across the European continent. And it'll be interesting to see what takes place through the remainder of spring. So, of course, March is still ahead of us, predominantly ahead of us. So, this is a forecast. We don't know exactly how this month's going to pan out. I certainly do believe that the first half of the month, at least, is going to be firmly below average, especially given what we're seeing in the models now starting to come together very nicely. And we'll look at that in a wee bit more detail in just a second. But we don't know what the second half of March is going to produce. We don't know what April is going to produce. And of course, we don't know what May is going to produce. So the overall spring, I don't tend to do spring forecasts or autumn forecasts. I do provide my ideas, but it's more kind of broken down into monthly intervals. I do, of course, have a summer forecast that will be released towards the beginning of June. So ECMWF Weeklies, the latest run, indicating that the upcoming 30-day period is predominantly below average. Big contrast to February, of course. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what takes place. Looking at the 7-day increments of the very same model, you can see exactly what takes place. Very cold compared to normal across Spain, France, Portugal, and into the Low Countries, Germany, and even into Poland and whatnot. Very warm compared to average, may I add, across the southeast of Europe and Scandinavia, which you can see here, interestingly enough. So this is, of course, the upcoming 7-day period. By the way, I'm going to have to look, especially at the weekend coming up, with the Global Weather and Climate Report, the snow that was seen in parts of the Balearics in recent days. Very interesting there. Very cold trough centered over the western Mediterranean basin. Something I haven't really made mention of, and I kind of intend to do that. But look at how we change things as we progress through these 7-day increments. You can see here that we turn colder and colder than average. Look at Scandinavia and look at the big turnaround compared to the upcoming 7 days. So very interesting. And yes, this is a direct response to the major strat warming that took place on the 16th of February. We're now seeing that response, and it looks as if, instead of it being a 2019 sudden stratospheric warming, which produced warmer than normal conditions across the UK, colder than normal across North America, we are seeing the cold side of the major strat warming, the 70% probability of colder than average. We're in that 70%, it looks like, this time around, as opposed to the 30% that doesn't produce cold. Also quite interesting, the Mann-Gillian oscillation, very strong in phase 8 at the moment. We'll look at that in the next day or so as well, because I think there's a combination of both the Mann-Gillian oscillation and the SSW working hand in hand to produce this cold than average period. But as we continue to play through the loop, notice here warmth not that far away from the UK, particularly so across southwest Ireland That could be because we've got milder conditions trying to move in. As well as that, we've also got higher pressure further north. But what we're going to see is as we progress through next week, and we'll look at this in a second, is areas of low pressure undercutting that block of cold further north. And that could set the stage for some very interesting scenarios as mild Atlantic air tries to move in from the southwest, cold coming in from the northeast. And of course, you've got that battle, that fight, which I think the cold is going to win the battleground over the British Isles here. So we'll watch this space. Look at Northern Europe, northern portions of the UK as well, firmly below average. This is the period now between the 7th and the 14th. So this is the crucial week 2 in the time frame. Notice here that milder conditions is trying to attempt to move in from a southwest direction in these 7-day increments here. Continue to play through into the second half of the month, maybe slightly milder than average with Atlantic influence. Southern Ireland, southwest portions of the UK, colder than average across the north of the UK. Could this be one of the coldest Marches since perhaps like 2013 for places such as Scandinavia? Because these below average conditions are very prominent right the way through till at least the 20th of March, and then you notice it starts to ease off slightly. Northern half of the British Isles stays below average pretty much through the majority of the period here. So certainly I'm very intrigued at what I'm seeing in the model. So let's look at the latest run of the GFS here, and you can see, let's actually quickly look at the snow probabilities first. So this is the ECMWF for 6 o'clock UTC next Wednesday here. Decent enough snow cover. Yeah, you know, you've got 1-2 inches of snow on the ground and whatnot. But even the low levels, may I add, look at the GFS. Remember what I showed you yesterday? The GFS being less bullish in terms of snow. This is now what is projecting for the 6 o'clock period next Wednesday here. And that's a pretty decent snow cover, may I add. That's actually looking quite interesting. And with this amount of snow on the ground potentially, with clear skies, lighter winds, temperatures are actually being portrayed to be in the minus teens below freezing. So let's have a quick look. Kind of jumping a wee bit back and forth here, and I apologise for that. Look at this here for the same period with that snow on the ground. Minus 13 just to the southwest of Edinburgh. Long way out, folks. I get that. I understand that. But now the models are starting to show the potential in next week's weather pattern. But certainly that would be very impressive for the month of March, but nothing out of the ordinary. I think back in 2001, March produced a minus 20 in the British Isles. Of course, minus 10, minus 12 Celsius back in March 2013, which, by the way, was the UK's second coldest March since the 1960s. And I think minus 1962 was the coldest March on record for the British Isles. So, you know, you go back 50 plus years, March 2013 was colder than your average January, and it was a very, very notable cold month. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to that. I'm not saying that we're even going to March 2018, which started off very extreme indeed. We're not seeing that this time around. But there is plenty of Marches that can be wild, and I think there's a wild setup coming. I think we've got a pretty tough week coming up next week. And I'm trying my best not to hype things up, but show you the reality of what we're looking at here. But yeah, certainly exciting weather to come, if you like winter, that is. So this is the here and now. You can see here high pressure weakening slightly and positioned just to the northwest of the British Isles, as you can see here. Deep area of low pressure over the Atlantic. Now watch this space. Areas of low pressure start to develop on this northerly flow. Now watch this area of high pressure and positioning. So this is one model of the GFS operational. We know that the ideas are going to chop and change the solution, but the overall emphasis is growing on interest in winter weather. Notice the development of these areas of low pressure coming out of a colder source, so i.e. Iceland, and this is the two areas of low pressure moving from north to south with cold fronts that open the door to the Arctic. So the time frame will be end of the upcoming weekend and into early next week. That is when we start to see colder and colder conditions. So here's system number one, the other just southeast of Iceland. System number one moves south, probably with a mixture of rain, sleet, and snow, turning primarily more wintry as the system moves south. Then we've got another feature that comes down through the Furrows into the northern half of the UK. This second feature may have a little bit more winteriness associated with it, thanks to the the lead system that kind of brings in that first push of cold air. Then the second feature is more cold air to play with. That could enhance more in the way of snow across the northern half of the UK, but not exclusively. And watch what happens with this second feature. It actually develops more off the GFS. That area of high pressure is now centered to the south of Greenland and Iceland. And look at the situation that's going on to the north. We'll start to squeeze the isobars. We're then pulling air straight out of the Arctic, south and into the UK. So these two areas of low pressure seen to the GFS is the door opening to the Arctic. Then we're in that run of northerly winds, as you can see here. Areas of low pressure sliding underneath that block to the north. So areas of low pressure coming across the Atlantic here. And it's as we see this situation developing here. So this is an area of high pressure, likely with snow on the ground. Squeezing the isobars get opened up. So therefore we could see some very chilly nights indeed, especially if there's snow on the ground. Minus 12, minus 13, completely possible with this type of scenario. We need to keep an eye on these areas of low pressure as well. As they move moisture into the cold air, you're increasing the chance of snow. I'm going to call it quits at that. There's plenty of things there for you to digest. If you haven't already done so, check out my March forecast. Lots of information on there. There is a link in the description for that below. But certainly, we have got plenty of weather to speak about, so keep it right here on my YouTube channel. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Hit that bell so that you get the notification of each video. It's usually between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. each evening I do these videos. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thanks for watching. And if you've been a long time subscriber, I do appreciate each and every view, each and every comment. So keep it right here and stay tuned. Hopefully see you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.